War in Lebanon, ignited by a swarm of sudden explosions. Hezbollah's leader Nasrallah killed, the militia decapitated, and thousands dead.
They're bringing coffin after coffin out to the cemetery.
Now Israel and Iran on the brink of all-out war. This is why Lebanon is the battleground at the center of it all. Thousands of small explosions in bags, pockets and hands all across Lebanon. After nearly a year of feared escalation in the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel, the moment comes. But not in the form of airstrikes. Instead, pages distributed to Hezbollah operatives used as hidden weapons, killing, wounding, spreading fear and shock at the scale of Israel's penetration into Hezbollah's communications network. But it isn't over. The next day, more explosions at mobile phone shops, apartment buildings, even funerals for those who died in the first attack. This time, walkie-talkies, the weapon. Over 2 days, at least 32 people killed and hundreds injured. Israel has never claimed responsibility for the attack, but shortly after said it was entering a new phase of war. A war Israel's Prime Minister declared last year, October the 7th, 2023, after Hamas launched a brutal attack, killing more than 1,200 people, injuring thousands more, and capturing over 250 hostages. Unprecedented, even in a decades-long pattern of attack and retaliation. Israel's response came just hours later, it too unprecedented. A relentless campaign from the air and on the ground that's killed more than 41,000 people in a year and displaced almost the entire population of Gaza of 2 million people. That same year has seen intensifying conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. It began the day after the Hamas attack, with Hezbollah firing rockets across the border, they said, in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. Israel struck back, hitting southern Lebanon in what became a near-daily back-and-forth exchange. Tens of thousands of civilians on both sides of the border have been forced to leave their homes. In April, Hezbollah's sponsor, Iran, launched a mass missile and drone attack on Israel after an Israeli strike in Syria. In 2 extraordinary days in July, Israel assassinated a senior Hezbollah commander in Beirut, then Hamas's political leader in Tehran, moments that heighten further the risk of regional war. A risk even more acute now, with Israeli troops inside Lebanon for the 4th time in 50 years. So why is this escalation so significant? And why is Lebanon so often the battleground for conflict in the Middle East? In order to understand, we have to go back.
The story is one of destitution, for these people have either fled or been expelled from their homes and their livelihood.
When Israel was created in 1948, tens of thousands of Palestinians fled to Lebanon. By the mid-1970s, some of those displaced had joined the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, and began attacking Israel across the border. What followed in 1978 was Israel's first invasion of Lebanon. 4 years later, Israel invaded again, and despite the PLO leader's confidence,
we are now stronger than any period before.
They were expelled to Tunisia. But that invasion was forever tarnished by the massacre of Palestinians in the camps of Sabra and Shatila, carried out by a Christian militia backed by Israel. That same year, Hezbollah was created, sponsored by Iran, separate to the Lebanese government, with the aim of resisting Israeli occupation. But it was Hezbollah's 1983 attack on US Marines in Beirut that first brought it major global attention. In 1992, Israel assassinated Hezbollah's founding leader. He was replaced by this man, Hassan Nasrallah. 8 years later, Nasrallah was claiming victory as Israel ended the bloody occupation that had begun in 1982. In 2006, Hezbollah and Israel were fighting in southern Lebanon again. A 34-day war saw more than 1,000 killed, mostly Lebanese civilians. Hugely damaged, Hezbollah rebuilt with Iranian weapons and funding to become the key player in Tehran's so-called axis of resistance against Israel, including militias like Hamas, the Houthis in Yemen, and various Shiite armed groups in Iraq and Syria. All of which leads us back to the present. In disarray after the pager and walkie-talkie attacks, Hezbollah is about to be decapitated. Israel's first airstrike kills a senior commander, Ibrahim Akil, along with 37 people in a crowded residential area of southern Beirut. Channel 4 News is there in the aftermath.
It is entirely surrounded by residential blocks. Now, Israel say this was a targeted strike, but unleashing this level of devastation on an area this densely populated means it's nigh on impossible to avoid civilian casualties.
Wave after wave of Israeli airstrikes follow over the coming days. It's the deadliest assault Lebanon has seen in decades. Tens of thousands are forced to flee their homes in southern Lebanon and turning places like this school, south of Beirut, into camps for the displaced. Batul has given birth just 5 days ago, but has still managed to get her 4 daughters here.
It escalated so suddenly. At first, we thought living in our village would be okay, because the Israelis used to hit just Hezbollah. But the last 2 or 3 days, they're not striking just Hezbollah. Now they're striking everywhere.
On the 25th, Hezbollah launches its first ever strike on Tel Aviv. The missile, supplied by Iran, intercepted before it can reach its target, the headquarters of Israel's spy agency, Mossad. But for Israelis, the long-feared prospect of thousands of Hezbollah rockets raining down on Israel is, so far, not happening. Israel's army readying to press home the advantage.
Your military boots will enter enemy territory, enter villages that Hezbollah has prepared as large military outposts.
The 27th of September is a pivotal day. Israel's Prime Minister ends all talk of a 21-day ceasefire at the UN General Assembly.
There is no place in Iran that the long arm of Israel cannot reach. And that's true of the entire Middle East.
Within minutes of his speech, the biggest strike yet in southern Beirut, Netanyahu has approved the killing of Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah. Dozens of missiles destroy the organization's underground headquarters, built deep under residential apartment blocks. Air thick with ash as emergency services race to the scene, to the ruins of buildings home to hundreds of civilians. Israel continues to pummel Lebanon.
The sky is dense with the smoke. It smells acrid. The scale of destruction around here is vast.
With 1 million people now displaced, Israeli tanks gather on the border, readying for a 4th invasion in 50 years. In the early hours of the 1st of October, Israel's military moves in what it calls limited and targeted raids on Lebanese territory. Just hours later, Iran launches its second direct attack on Israel. This one bigger in scale and ambition than the first in April, ballistic missiles raining down across Israel, air bases sustaining damage. Israel's missile defense system intercepts much of the barrage, the only death coming in the occupied West Bank, a displaced man from Gaza hit by falling debris. In Lebanon, the human cost continues to rise.
They're bringing coffin after coffin out to the cemetery. 13 people are being buried here today, and the bloodshed shows no sign of ending.
Israel's military also sustaining losses. Helicopters seen here purportedly collecting the bodies of troops killed fighting Hezbollah. The army confirmed the deaths of 8 of its soldiers. As speculation mounts about how Israel will strike Iran, there's no let-up for those living in southern Lebanon. More buildings reduced to rubble. With each day, Israel strikes deeper into Lebanon and deeper still into the capital. This strike on a wealthy area of downtown Beirut. Nobody here was expecting to be so close to destruction. Then, overnight, one of the fiercest bombardments in Beirut so far. In Tehran, Iran's supreme leader speaks for the first time since the latest attack on Israel, telling his allies to double your efforts, strengthen your unity, and resist the aggressive energy and thwart it. In the weekend leading up to the anniversary of Hamas's October the 7th attack, the strikes on Beirut grow more intense still. And now, one in northern Lebanon, the city of Tripoli, killing a Hamas leader, his wife, and 2 daughters. Lebanon's health ministry says in just 3 weeks, 2,000 people have been killed. In Israel, the Prime Minister reminds the world that his country will respond to Iran's attack.
ישראל החובה והזכות להגן על עצמה ולהגיב על התקפות אלה, וכך נעשה.
And as the anniversary comes, there are more strikes on Beirut. Israel's army claims it has killed yet another Hezbollah figure, a senior commander. Hezbollah does not comment. A year on from when the Middle East changed forever, death and destruction is now a daily occurrence in the region. While Iran insists it doesn't want any more escalation, the world is on edge, waiting for Israel's latest response. This cycle of attack and retaliation looks likely to continue, with fears still growing of an all-out war.